Every morning at 4 a.m., deliver 3 meals to my grandson. If you refuse, you won't see your grandson again." Suddenly, my son's wife and her mother appeared, threatening me with these words. Caught off guard, I was speechless. What were they thinking? I sighed in disbelief. Then I made up my mind and replied, "All right, I understand. I'll do it." My son's wife and her mother were shocked by my response, and I presented them with a document I had prepared. My name is Lola. I'm currently 65 years old. When I got married, we had a big family, including a mother-in-law and great aunt. We were blessed with 3 children, leading a busy and challenging life. Now, it's just my husband and me. Our children are married and have their own lives. My eldest daughter lives far away, requiring a flight to visit, and my 2 sons live in the same state, but not close enough for frequent visits. Still, they come home with their families for gatherings and Christmas, and we become a big family again. These limited times bring back memories and are part of the joys of our old age. One day, my eldest son called. He wanted to build a house on a piece of land near our home, still in my husband's name. There's a prep school nearby that my eldest son attended, likely because my grandson Mitchell is preparing for its entrance exam. My husband and son discussed it thoroughly and decided to build the house there. Regardless of the reason, I was happy and looking forward to my eldest son's family moving closer. My eldest son is busy with work. Moving here means a slightly longer commute for him, but they prioritize their son's future and decide to move. We'll help within our capabilities, I told them. Regarding the house, I communicated with Emmy, my son's wife. But when I asked about the groundbreaking ceremony, I don't know. Or the topping out date, it's not decided yet, she coldly responded. All right, let me know when it's settled. I'll prepare and help out. I couldn't think of anything else to say. I wondered if construction hadn't started yet. It's been a while since the contract, but maybe there were issues with the land. Even after hanging up, my doubts remained. But no matter how long we waited, there was no contract. Unable to bear it any longer, my husband called our son. To our surprise, "What? It's almost built already?" Our son said that. The next day, my husband and I went to see our oldest son's family's house under construction. To our surprise, a splendid house was already built on what used to be an empty lot. Apparently, my son's wife just hadn't told us. Angry but realizing it's ultimately for our son's family, we decided not to interfere. Still frustrated, I shared my feelings with my eldest daughter living far away. "I told you Liam's family is building a house near us, right? Emmy didn't inform us about any progress. They didn't even invite us to the topping out." Then my daughter said, "Huh? Emmy's mom was on the construction company's website. I thought you guys didn't want to be in the photos." What? After hanging up, I checked the website my daughter mentioned. There was a photo of my son's family and Emmy's parents with the caption, "Why family residence topping out? Congratulations." Indeed, Emmy had told me, "It's not decided, I don't know," when I asked. But she celebrated with her parents without us. I closed the website trying to hide my sadness. Emmy's parents live in the neighboring state, so they were invited for the rare occasion. I understand that, but we wanted to be included too. That's all. Our son's house was completed, leaving a lingering discomfort in our hearts. Even about the moving day, Emmy was evasive. "I don't know." But after my husband contacted our son, we found the date. "If you have time, could you help with the move?" my son asked. Happy to be asked, I of course agreed. Later, I asked Emmy about the time. Her answer was vague. We're moving in the morning, so maybe 1 or 2 p.m. 3 p.m. is fine too." The time was uncertain. "So I'll come after 2 p.m. I don't want to arrive too early and add to the chaos if things are still scattered. Emmy might not know what to ask for help with." "But any time is fine, but if that's what you want, then okay," she coldly replied. I was looking forward to them moving in, but it seems it won't be as I imagined. A few days later, the moving day arrived. My husband, unsure what to help with, stayed back, and I went alone to the new house just past 2 p.m. as planned. Emmy, who was curt on the phone, welcomed me when I arrived. "Hello, Lola." She came out of the house with a smile that wasn't at all unpleasant. "Hello, I came to help. I brought some snacks and drinks." I handed over the refreshments I bought and stepped into the new house for the first time. Breathing in the smell of new construction, I was greeted by a familiar voice. "You're late," said my son's wife's mother, appearing from the living room. "Hello," I replied, greeting her while pondering. Late? Had Emmy told only her mother to come early again? Feeling slighted, I tried to hide my irritation. But Emmy's mother, oblivious to my feelings, laughed, saying, "Moving is such hard work. I'm exhausted. It's been a while." She casually sipped coffee, glancing at the boxes. I could only respond with a wry smile. "Sorry for being late. What time did you start helping?" I asked casually. She laughed. "Helping? It's more like moving our stuff. Emmy insisted we do it ourselves." Her loud, unrefined laughter was jarring. I instinctively asked, "What?" "Mom, did you finish setting up your room? Hurry up." But just then, Emmy's voice drowned out mine. Before I could ask again, I realized that was the answer. Unbelievable! Emmy's mother, it seemed, was moving into the house on our land without any consultation. Really, shouldn't there have been at least some discussion about it? I couldn't even muster a smile at this point. Left without a tour of the house and suddenly learning this news, I couldn't be in a good mood. "Well, this is a nice place. By the way, has Mitchell finished setting up his room?" Emmy's mother continued chatting, coffee in hand. I couldn't bring myself to respond. I just nodded along with a polite smile and headed to the kitchen, where untouched dishes lay. I silently started washing the dishes next to Emmy's mother, who was all talk and no action. After the house and the moving saga, I decided to keep a distance from my eldest son's family. The moving process had left a bitter taste, and things I hadn't noticed from afar became apparent now that we were neighbors. I could compromise with Emma prioritizing her mother, but that didn't justify treating us, her in-laws, with such indifference. My grandson got into the local prep school, but Emmy's mother attended the entrance ceremony with them. They went out for a meal afterward, and we weren't even invited. If I knew it would be this upsetting, I would have preferred not to get involved. But for better or worse, my son's wife didn't seem to think the same. And one day, sometime after this happened, the doorbell rang. Standing there was my son's wife and her mother. "Hello? What brings you here?" I was surprised by their sudden visit. Excitedly, they said, "Lola, you must be bored every day, right? Can you deliver 3 meals for our grandson every morning at 4 a.m.? "What?" I couldn't comprehend their sudden request and couldn't respond immediately. But my son's wife's mother added more pressure. "Both Emmy and I are too busy to prepare meals for Mitchell. If he's important to you, you'll agree, right? If you refuse, we'll get a divorce and you won't see your grandson again." "That's a great idea." The two of them burst into laughter. Stunned and unable to speak, they continued to threaten me. I had reached my limit. Even when I tried to keep my distance, this happened. If this is what it takes to avoid further distress, I must really cut ties. "All right, I understand. Here you go, the divorce papers." I calmly said this and handed them the divorce papers I had prepared, which were at the entrance. "What?" "Divorce, right? My son told me to get them ready, just in time." My son's wife turned pale at my words. "What do you mean?" Exactly what I said. She began to tremble at my response. My husband and I had already spoken with our eldest son. We couldn't ignore his wife's dismissive attitude towards us. And about the house, if her mother was going to live there, shouldn't we, who gave up the land, have been informed? Our son listened to our complaints in silence, then slowly began to speak. "Actually, I didn't know about Emmy's mom living with us." "What?" My husband and I were shocked by our son's words. Turns out Emmy's mother had moved in after discussing it only with her daughter, and she claimed to have informed us about the topping out in the recent entrance ceremony. Our son was stunned when we said we weren't informed. Of course, it's problematic that our son neglected his wife's selfishness, but her behavior was too self-centered. And it wasn't just this. She'd say things like, "The only good thing about him is his paycheck." Even to her mother, "Liam isn't trying hard enough. That's why Mitchell doesn't have a sibling." Our son resigned, said, "Well, it's tough having my allowance cut, but I'm a man. I have to endure it as long as she takes care of Mitchell." I couldn't help but scold him for laughing it off. "What are you saying? You are our cherished child, raised with care. You don't deserve to be treated so badly by others. Value yourself more." After my words, my eldest son quietly thanked me, then said, "I'd divorce if I could, but with Mitchell, it's better to have a mother around." My husband and I exchanged glances at his words. Even if accused of being overindulgent, we as his parents are the only ones who can support him. "I can take on the role of mother any time," I naturally offered. But the conversation soon turned to the issue of custody for my grandson. However, my son believed that wouldn't be a problem. Mitchell isn't a little kid anymore. He can voice his own opinions. I think he knows which side is better for him. Even so, children often choose their mothers. The thought of losing custody and possibly never seeing him again was more worrying than unsettling. We ended the discussion with these concerns, but they soon dissipated. My grandson, now attending prep school, occasionally visits us. During one of these visits, we had a chance to talk. "How's prep school?" I asked. "I want to join a club, but Mom won't let me. She insists I should study more," he complained. "I don't even get an allowance. Mom and my grandma use my gift cards to support musicians. Isn't that unbelievable?" He expressed his frustration with his mother and grandmother. Initially, I wondered if he was mistaken. Adults using a child's money for supporting musicians seems far-fetched. But it turned out his words were true. His mother and grandmother were too busy following a musician, leaving them no time to prepare meals. So now he's given money instead. Since his prep school doesn't have a cafeteria, he grew tired of grocery store meals and started coming to our place for dinner. There's nothing wrong with being a fan of musicians, but there should be limits. Using a child's money or cutting the allowance of a hardworking husband is outrageous. Upon hearing that, I was determined not to let my son's wife get custody of my grandson. I was convinced that my intelligent grandson wouldn't choose his foolish mother. After another discussion with my eldest son, it seemed his mind was set. I prepared the divorce papers for him as he couldn't get them during the weekday, and placed them by the entrance so he wouldn't forget them. My son's wife turned pale and fell silent when she heard my whole story. It's not wrong to be a musician supporter, but everyone else manages their work, studies, household chores, all while supporting someone they like. Are you really doing what you should be doing? She didn't respond to my question. I continued. You came here today to ask me to make Mitchell's lunch because you want to wait for the musician, right? I heard it from Mitchell. No matter how much you threaten to keep me from seeing Mitchell, or say it's for his sake, I won't support your almost criminal hobby. My son's wife's mother, who had been silent until then, became furious. Criminal? That's disrespectful and prejudiced. Prejudiced? Waiting daily for someone at their workplace is nothing but stalking. Just because they're musicians, you aren't arrested. Think about their feelings. It's embarrassing to have such a nuisance in the family. I was loud in my anger. My son's mother-in-law was shaking, trying to say something, but she couldn't come up with any rebuttal. Of course she couldn't. Liam has made up his mind to divorce. Even if it goes to court, my husband and I will fight for Liam and Mitchell. Today was a good opportunity to tell you that. Maybe we'll meet next in court? I left those words behind, ushered the two stunned women out of the entrance, and locked the door. I felt relieved having spoken my mind. Wait! I heard my son's wife call out, but I had no reason to wait for her. They must have never imagined today turning out like this. They probably expected me to accept their proposal and deliver meals 3 times a day. The grandson gets to eat nutritious meals and saves on food expenses. They must have thought they were lucky, but they had always had their way until now. It's time for them to learn that life doesn't always go as planned. There was no more noise from the entrance. They must have given up and left. That day, as usual, my grandson came over after school. I called my son to tell him about the afternoon's events. He hadn't known about the supporter issue, and was deeply remorseful, apologizing to his son with tears. Hearing my grandson say, "Dad, you're not at fault. I'll be fine without Mom, so just divorce her quickly," made my son realize he needed to divorce as soon as possible. Having been controlled by his wife until now, my son immediately canceled his credit cards and changed the bank account PIN the next day. He hired a lawyer and conveyed to his wife and her mother, "If you don't agree to the divorce, you must repay all of Mitchell's money immediately." The amount exceeded $10,000. It was a sum the unemployed pair couldn't repay, a proposal made with that understanding. Though relinquishing my grandson's savings was regrettable, there was no other way. Pressing charges for embezzlement was possible, but unlikely to result in compensation, and we thought it better for my son and grandson's mental health to sever ties completely. My son's wife, despite her protests, eventually had to sign the divorce papers, and the divorce was surprisingly smooth. She and her mother had to leave the house, reacting unexpectedly and causing a scene about property redistribution. But the land was in my husband's name, and the house and mortgage in my son's. When his wife absurdly proposed, "Just let us live here," my son responded with, "Rent is $15,000. With just one sentence, she exploded in anger. "You only built a small house and act all high and mighty." And she retorted to my eldest son. My grandson retorted, "At least he built a house, unlike you." My son couldn't help but laugh, happy to have his son's support. "You can keep your lives," his wife spat bitterly. But who was really being abandoned? My son and grandson watched them leave in anger, smiling. Now they're staying at her sister's place, who married into a large farming family in the countryside. Life will surely be tough for them, and finding work in the countryside isn't easy. They won't have time or the means to continue their fan activities. Now they will have to help diligently on the farm, at least to avoid causing trouble for her sister and her family. They even called once begging, "I'm sorry, I want to come back." "But your home is where you're living now," my son firmly responded. They face a life without disposable income or freedom, but it's just the consequences of their actions. They need to endure and appreciate this life. My son officially became the custodial parent, as my grandson wished. Even without that, the neglectful parenting would have likely resulted in losing custody. My grandson joined the table tennis club he wanted, and receives an allowance of $100 a month from his father. I said, it might be too much for a middle schooler, but it turns out that Mitchell is saving and investing half of it every month. We and his father had told him not to worry about money, but "I still need to grow it a little," he said. I was so surprised that I was at a loss for words, but he is such a well-grounded child, and I couldn't help but admire him. Now, my son and grandson live together. Every morning they stop by to pick up the lunch I prepare, then head to school and work, returning to our house for dinner before going back to their home. All I can do is support their life in this way. But seeing them happy, my husband and I feel happy too. They may face challenges as a father-son household, but they always have our support. Life is just beginning, and I hope for their happiness, as their joy is ours too.